Shroomies. Welcome to another episode of See You on the Other Side. I am Christine.
And I'm Leah.
Don't mind my voice. I'm a little struggling with allergies. No, it's not COVID. I already got tested.
It's a sexy voice, though.
Yeah, my ScarJo. Scarlett Johansson. So, enjoy it.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
Welcome to Sex Talk Radio with Christine and Leah.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to ruin your mood.
Don't even start because you're not good at this. So just backtrack now.
I'm going to ruin your mood.
Welcome to Sex Talk with solely Christine. Leah is not included.
I'm just the button pusher.
Oh, my goodness.
I feel like I can be sexy when I try.
You are sexy.
No, not like... Oh, thanks.
Let's be honest. No, you are sexy. Just don't sex talk.
Just, okay.
Keep that between you and Jason.
Keep your mouth shut.
When it's not organic, it doesn't work for you.
Have you ever seen those people where you're like, he is super sexy, and then they start talking, and you're like, all right, don't talk.
Well, what's that movie with Adam Sandler, Chris Rock, Kevin James, and David Spade, where they're all like friends growing up, and then their wives...
It's literally called Grown Ups?
Yes, it's literally called Grown Ups. But their wives go to like a water park, and there's like a lifeguard like way off in the distance, and they're like, oh, he's so hot. And he starts like, he like sees them, and he like takes off his sunglasses and winks, and they're all getting hot and bothered. And then he starts like sexy walking over to them in slow motion. And they're, just getting like so excited because he's coming over to them. And then he comes over. I literally just saw this on TV the other night.
Oh,
like
shit.
just this
I've
part.
never seen this movie.
You've never seen this?
No.
And he comes over and he's like super hot. And he goes, hey, what's up, ladies? Blah, 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 blah. And they're like,
wah, wah, wah.
lady boner kill right here. Like, don't just look pretty. Don't talk.
You know who I was thinking of that is the guy from Stranger Things. Like, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but the brother of Max.
Oh, so hot.
I love him.
Yeah, but he's a dick.
Yeah, he's an asshole. But weren't we kind of attracted to assholes?
100%. I loved a good asshole. I was like,
I love me an asshole.
Yeah, I was like, oh, like you're literally not acknowledging me? Marry me, please.
Which is interesting.
That's the unhealed Christine.
It's going to go into our episode today.
Yes. So what are we talking about?
How weird
today?
is that? That is not even what we were trying to do.
We did not do this on purpose.
But
it was
we
just
loved
organic.
a good asshole.
Yeah. So what are we talking about?
So our last real episode, and I say that because I think we just put out the human design one, and I don't count that because it was an accidental recording. But it worked. It worked. A lot of you guys have reached out and said something about it. And we might throw some out there like that every now and then that aren't really, our niche, but we just want to get it out. We talked about empaths. That was our last planned episode. And we mentioned the dynamic and the relationship between empaths and narcissists.
And how they often mirror each other.
Yes. And they are very attracted to each other. And we want to go into that today.
Yeah. But before we go into narcissists, there's one thing that I want to correct myself on that I said in a previous episode. And, people may not have noticed it, but the more I thought about it, I kind of want to retract my statement. So I said, you teach people how to treat you. And the more I thought about that, I was like, that's not necessarily true because often, especially with people who grew up in trauma, you don't know any better,
right,
on how people should treat you. And I think oftentimes when we were in those situations where maybe people didn't treat us well, it's because we had a really, really low self-worth and we didn't know what we deserved, and we didn't even know, even if we knew something was wrong or we weren't being treated well, we didn't know how to even vocalize that or express that, and we didn't know who we were. So how can we demand respect when we don't even know who we are and we don't even respect ourselves?
100%.
And we're kind of wired that way. And a lot of times something to think about is children who grow up in trauma, they're at an automatic disadvantage than somebody who didn't grow up with, maybe really painful experiences. And so I think it's something that we both had to learn a little bit later on, and we were maybe a little bit behind on how people should treat us and kind of the respect that we should demand.
So I get what you're saying. And I do think that it can be taken out of context if you're hearing it and you're in a different place in your life. So I guess when you say that to someone, like you teach people how to treat you, and let's say I was in the place that I was with my husband 2 years ago, and I would look at you like, you think I'm teaching him to treat me like this?
And that's kind of why I wanted to retract it.
Right. So how could you word that in a way that I think maybe you can get to the bottom of it by saying like, I used to say this all the time. Like, I used to say this to Jason, like, how would you feel if when our daughter grows up,
somebody talked to her that way?
Somebody talked to her. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes that was a little bit easier for him to relate to.
Yeah.
Because he never thought about it in that way.
Yeah.
But, I did, now looking back, I'm like, I kind of did teach him that. Because what you're saying, I didn't know any better.
Right.
I didn't believe I deserved more. Even though I felt like I did, there was this very low sense of self-worth and very low feeling of like, maybe this is what I deserve. It was on a subconscious level.
Right.
So while I knew what he was doing was hurtful and was wrong, if you had said you're teaching him that, I would have been like, no, the fuck I'm not. But now I'm like, you know what though? For years, I excused his behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I justified it.
Or you just didn't say anything. You didn't tell anybody.
I ignored it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I kind of did play a part in teaching him that as long as he did A, B, and C, I was never going to leave.
Yeah.
And I was always going to forgive.
Yeah. But he started to change when you were like,
I'm doing
done.
It anymore.
I'm not doing this.
You're exactly right.
And why I got divorced was I was like, that was my thought. If I have a son, I don't want him to treat his partner that way. Or if I have a daughter, I don't want her to think that it's okay to
be treated that way.
And it was literally as simple as that.
Yeah. It really should be though.
Yeah.
Like when you think about it like that, if you aren't a parent and you don't have children, let's say this is going to kind of go into like that inner child parenting role, which is interesting. I had a conversation with someone this weekend about that, and it was kind of like a mind light bulb moment for her. But if you don't have children, and so you can't say, how would I want my daughter or my son to be treated? Go back to little you and think about what you would want for someone to treat you as a child. Is this behavior acceptable? Is this okay? That's one way that you could like maybe put that into perspective for yourself.
Yeah. And I've said this before. Don't worry about anybody else. Worry about 5-year-old you and 50-year-old you.
I love that.
Are you making them proud?
What was that one thing you said to Tony and you recorded it, and then I tried to do it to Jason and record it?
What?
Oh my God. You like asked him a question in bed one night or maybe a statement.
Oh my God. What was it?
It was something along these lines, like who you are now is who you needed as a child or something.
Yes. I said, and Tony had a very different answer than what I did. Tony's parents passed away, but he had a very, very positive relationship with his mother and his father. And he really, like, they had a solid marriage. And it was a marriage that he very much so looked up to. And so we were just sitting on the couch one night, and I just said, I am now the adult that I needed when I was a little kid.
Yes.
And I said, isn't that crazy to think about? Because like I think about those things often. I think about, the kind of mom I'm going to be for Kai. I overly think about it and overly analyze because it's very, very important to me.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah. But I also think that our parents and our parents didn't think of parenting that way. Because often it's common to be like, oh, you should be grateful, or I do this, this, and this for you. And it's like, well, I didn't choose to be here. Like, you all chose to have me. So,
okay, Austin.
Yeah.
Like my 9-year-old.
But tell me, he's not wrong.
He's totally not wrong. And this was in a very different context that conversation happened. I'll have to tell you that.
Yeah, but I did not, they didn't have the tools. So I'm not trying to place blame, but I did not feel like I had any type of adult figure that I could talk to that was a safe space, that was going to advocate for me, dealing with, I don't want to diagnose someone as a narcissist that lived in my home, but dealing with somebody who's very abusive, I felt like I had nobody. And with, healing and therapy and all of these things, I just kind of had this epiphany moment on the couch that was like, oh shit. Like, if I were with little me right now, I would give little me like what she needed.
Yes.
And that's really crazy to think about, the emotional support and the safe space, and I would advocate for her. And so I try to make decisions now in my life to continue to live like that.
And I guess that's what I mean. Like, if you are not a parent, you can still frame this in a way that's
for
like,
sure.
Am I what I needed as a child? Because that will directly reflect the type of adult you are, mm-hmm. and how you are behaving in your adult relationships in your life.
Yeah.
Are you advocating for yourself? Are you kind to other people? Are you compassionate? Are you forgiving of yourself?
Are you kind to yourself?
Are you kind to yourself? So yeah, all of those things. The conversation with Austin, I have like a 9-year-old. I don't want to call him a smartass because I love that he is this way, but he is very inquisitive and he's
funny.
A very critical and logical thinker. And as a parent, sometimes that's hard to manage because you almost want to be like, I just need you to listen to me because I said so. But he's like, why? But yeah, one time I said something about like how expensive it is to have 3 children and have to work. And it was because he didn't want to do his chores. And I was like, it's the least you can do to help keep this family running and help mom and dad out and do your part.
Oh, and that's when he
goes, well, I didn't ask to be born. I was like, touche. No, you didn't. But if you weren't born, you wouldn't be here. And he goes, if I wasn't born, I wouldn't know any different.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
he's way ahead of his time.
Oh, totally. So it's so funny because anybody who's ever been around him has been like, he's not wrong. Like, he makes these statements and I'm like, he's not. But you know what? I'm not going to punish him for like thinking that way because I love that he thinks that way.
Yeah.
He is a free thinker, and
he also looks exactly like you, but as a boy.
Yeah.
So it's like the mini boy you.
He's the mini me. He's very inquisitive. So, okay.
So we did the earlier episode on empaths and how Leah and I are empaths. Well, again, oftentimes what mirrors an empath is a narcissist. And of course, we've attracted narcissists throughout our lives, and we both have experiences with narcissism.
Which is probably why we were attracted to the assholes.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was a lot surrounding that conversation, and we could talk about it for hours and hours and hours on end. But one of the things that we're really good at is being very compassionate and kind and empathetic towards people. And a narcissist is someone who thrives on that type of attention.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very easy to, I'll say this, like before I was a healed empath, before I knew what I was very drawn to the sad stories and very drawn to the victims of stories because I felt like I could relate to them. I felt bad for them.
You wanted to fix them.
I wanted to fix them, and I wanted to help them, and I wanted them to feel good. So it was almost like I poured so much into those relationships without even realizing what it was.
Well, yeah, and narcissists see the empath as loving, devoted, and agreeable.
Oh, okay.
So a narcissist is going to be drawn to an empath because the latter are emotional sponges. An empath loves to listen to the narcissist with undivided attention and a desire to understand them. So when a narcissist shows genuine appreciation for the openness, the empath then feels rewarded and special. Like they like,
oh, they're getting something from what I'm saying. Or
exactly.
Yeah, you're right. And it does feel like we're helping. So like that's kind of part of our nature is like we feel good when we're helping other people. So it's like this dynamic that is very hard to resist.
Right. Well, and then, narcissists are oftentimes they can be very charming. They can come across as very, confident and very decisive.
Which is something I was not good at.
Yeah, you are very indecisive.
I'm very indecisive.
Which is okay.
And I didn't have a lot of confidence. So I was drawn to people like that. But what's interesting is like we both... Now, okay, you said something earlier about like, I don't want to diagnose anybody, but if you're new here, hi, if you're new here, I was on Dr. Phil with my family like 10 years ago.
Please go into this.
I don't want to go into it. We can do a whole nother episode on this, but
a little bit though.
I had never really understood the word narcissist before. Like I'd heard it. I feel like we all have, and it's kind of right now making its rounds, just like the word empath on TikTok and Instagram, and it's becoming very popular, the word. And this was really the first time on the show, they said, do you think your mom is a narcissist? And from my understanding of what a narcissist was, 100%, yes, I think she is. I never really dug more after that. I just, in my mind, I knew she was one. I didn't realize they were that toxic. I didn't realize they were like dangerous. I didn't realize any of these things. All I remember is after the show, Dr. Phil came to me and he said, if you feel like you need to cut your mom off, I think you should.
He said that.
Yeah. And it was like it was like literally what I needed to do that because I had been struggling with that decision on and off for years and years and years. We would go months without talking and then I would bring her back in to my life. So it was like hearing that come from someone
who's a professional.
Yeah. I was like, okay, I've been right about this all along. I should have cut her off, but I didn't know how and I felt guilty about it. But saying that because like she was one type of a narcissist.
Yeah.
And even though she was never diagnosed.
Yeah.
She is like the stereotypical what you would expect a narcissist to be.
Oh, Tony and I watched that episode of you with on Dr. Phil.
You did?
Yeah.
He watched it too?
Yes.
Oh, shit.
And it was very hard for the both of us to watch it.
Really?
Yes, because of how she talked to you. Because she's overtly.
She's an overt, yeah.
And narcissist. Like she just said so many demeaning, never listened to you, truly heard what you had to say, took no consideration into your feelings, even if you said, hey, that hurt my feelings
and
when you did this.
Zero accountability.
Zero. Everything was an excuse.
Like even when he asked
everything. I mean, it was hard to watch it.
Yeah. There was one thing in particular. He asked her if she like had anything to say or, was sorry for any of the things she did. And she said the only thing she was sorry for was that she married the wrong man. Basically putting all the blame on my dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, you can't keep escaping. You did these things.
Yeah. Yeah. But the thing is that's the hard thing with the narcissist because it is hard to diagnose because a narcissist isn't going to say, oh, hey, I'm a narcissist and I should go to therapy and I should get help. No. Because they're going to lack any awareness within themselves that they're the problem because everyone else is always the problem. It's never them. They have no accountability within themselves and no awareness within themselves.
Zero awareness. I feel like isn't that one of the things they say is like the number one indicator of someone who is a narcissist is the lack of self-awareness.
Yes, Absolutely. And what's interesting about that is you and I, on separate occasions when we didn't even like talk about this because we dealt with narcissists, we both Googled, because they're very, very great at mind fucking you to making like they could stab you, but they're going to be able to spin it where they're going to turn out to be the victim in the end.
Yeah.
Like it's somehow your fault that you got stabbed and they're the ones who stabbed you.
Yep.
They're very good at, just literally mind fucking you.
Yeah.
I don't even know where I was going with that. How do you even get them into a therapy where they're going to get diagnosed? Because they're not going to take any ownership in anything that they've ever done.
So this is interesting because my therapist, I was dealing with somebody that I would call a narcissist.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
And even without a diagnosis, my therapist suggested this. She was like, she sounds like she might be a narcissist. And at the time, this was just a couple of years ago. And I was like, I don't think so, because she's nothing like my mom,
Right.
Because my understanding of a narcissist was my experience growing up.
Right.
And she was like, no, there's different types. And then she said to me, but a diagnosis doesn't matter, because the difference between, I think some level of narcissism is healthy and we all have it.
Absolutely. Just like a lot of us have some level of empathy.
Right.
Doesn't mean we're an empath.
No. And just like with the empath spectrum, there's a spectrum with narcissism and these narcissistic traits, and everybody has them. Where it becomes a problem and something that's diagnosable is if these become patterns and they are hurtful to other people, and you lack a self-awareness about it.
And an empathy.
Yeah. And so she said to me, a diagnosis doesn't matter because she's still doing A, B, C, and D. And those are still very, very toxic behaviors. And no one should have to deal with those behaviors on a regular basis. That's abusive and it's toxic. So whether there's a diagnosis or not, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
So I'm always like very careful about I can't diagnose.
Right.
And then what she said to me was interesting, because she was very much like, and I don't specialize in personality disorders, so I can't give you any information or insight onto this. I can help you navigate your relationship with that person the best I can, but I'm not specializing in that area.
Yeah.
Which is something I don't think a lot of people realize. Like, just because they're a therapist doesn't mean this is their expertise.
Right. Well, and a therapist can't diagnose somebody as a narcissist.
No.
So there's that too.
Yeah. They can't diagnose.
Yeah.
They're going to send them to someone who can.
But empaths and narcissists are often, like we said, attracted to each other. And oftentimes a narcissist, can complain, and an empath is going to give them the compassion that they need to complain. We are what regulates them.
Yeah.
So this right here, I'm reading an article, and it says, the world just doesn't appreciate them or show them the respect they deserve. And when they vent about this to an empath, they can expect wholeheartedly sympathy, soothing, compliments, understanding. The empath craves harmony and will do what they can to restore their partner or friend's sense of well-being so they can both enjoy their time together. And the bad thing about that is you're continuously stroking their ego and not holding them accountable. You're and right. So if you're not an empowered empath, then it
backfires a little bit.
Right. You're helping them be more.
You're feeding them.
Yeah. You're helping them be more toxic.
Well, and if you go down this rabbit hole of narcissism, they have what they call supplies. And so an empath is usually their number one supply. And I think about this all the time because I don't want to say it was a very weird dynamic between me and this person. And I was very much, she was always the victim. And I was very much like, I can't believe they would do that to you. You're such a great person. And I would feed her.
Right.
And no one else would do that. Well, so I became the supply because
you probably weren't getting the true context of how the situation
Oh,
went
you're
down.
exactly right.
It was you were getting
I was hearing her side.
a very manipulated version of the story.
100%.
Yeah.
Now my lesson from all of that is never assume when you're hearing one side of the story, because I have heard the other side of the story since then, and
Right.
I feel stupid.
You shouldn't feel stupid,
Well,
because again, it's easy. They're very good at what they do. They're
Okay, I
very
take that
good
back.
at manipulating.
I felt stupid, but what I did was I apologized to those other people, because I was like, I had no idea. I didn't know your side. I'm so sorry. I didn't know, and I hope you forgive me. I get it now, So I did, hold myself accountable for those decisions. But yeah, hearing someone else's other version of the story was really all I needed to be like, holy shit, I was wrong.
Right. And oftentimes narcissists are very good at, if they have a victim, like they want everybody to be on their side and like kind of outcast the victim.
Yeah. And there are words for all of this. It's we can get into like the words for it.
We're not the experts.
No, but yeah, there's like this triangulation type thing where if you do them wrong, they're going to try to get everyone on their side, and they're going to shit talk the fuck out of you.
Yeah.
And they're very good at making it sound like you were the bad guy. So
yeah,
I've experienced that. Like,
yeah. I've shared before when I did the episode about my trip that I was bulimic. And for anyone who has ever struggled with an eating disorder and with, bulimia, since I have also dealt with bulimia, there was a lot of shame in my eating disorder. It wasn't something that I told people, and it was a way for me to feel like I have control over something in a home where I felt very out of control of my surroundings, and every day I didn't know what I was gonna wake up to. Gosh, a few years pass, and my sister had found out that I had an eating disorder, and I was with a group of friends, and she called me and berated me about it. And I hung up the phone because I was really, really embarrassed that she would yell at me about something like that and not understand the struggle that goes with that and the shame that goes with that. And then once she knew, I constantly got ridiculed of my body, how clothes fit, all of these things. So fast forward, I got married, and my ex-husband, I actually got engaged. I take this back. I'm fucking up this story. Just bear with me here. I got engaged, and I had reached out to her. And even though we weren't speaking, I said, you could be involved in the wedding as little or as big as you want. I just, if you want to be there, I would love to have you. Trying to kind of
it's your olive branch.
Yeah. And she sent me a not very nice message back that she didn't want anything to do with me. And like I said, our interactions, I often felt a lot of shame and felt bad over who I was, even no matter, like, it didn't matter what I did. Like, I was just gonna get treated like shit. And so my ex-husband actually messaged her back, sticking up for me, and was like, you're a bully, and you're really like, she had an eating disorder, and you literally bullied her for it. And
oh my God.
I don't know how, like, that's not okay. And, in his defense, he was trying to stick up for me.
Yeah.
And she responded, and she was like, well, it's not my fucking fault. She was just throwing up everywhere.
Oh,
which, again, if you know anything about eating disorders, that's not how that goes. There's a lot of shame. You're very secretive about it, but it's even in that situation, she treated me really horribly over something that I was struggling with. And even years later, when she kind of got called out for how terribly she treated me, it was again my fault. Yeah.
So it was my mind.
Yeah, it was very like, but then you walk away from that conversation, and I was just like, it mind fucks you, because then it makes you question yourself and your sanity and like who you are. But now I see it very, very differently. And she was projecting all of her shit onto me. And I know that now. And I have a lot of grace for myself during that time, because I didn't have anybody to talk to or anything. I was just trying to do whatever I can just to survive.
Yeah.
So living with a narcissist, or living with somebody who has a lot of narcissistic like qualities to them, it's very, very hard.
It's toxic as fuck.
Yeah. So I really have a lot of empathy towards anyone who's had to like live in close quarters with somebody that is like that.
So you have the list pulled up, the dynamics between like an empath and a narcissist. And we're not saying that like you have to be an empath to be involved with a narcissist at all. It's almost like the energy that we put off, they're very aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
They know who is going to be easy to manipulate. And I will admit it right now, I was very easy to manipulate. Like, I know I was. Like, we joke about it, and I can joke about it now, but I used to be very triggered if somebody said that about me, because I was a people pleaser.
Right.
So
me
I
too.
didn't want to make anybody feel bad. Like, I would be easily manipulated into buying shit. Like, sales stress me the fuck out, because I don't want to say no to you, because I don't want to upset you, you know?
So, you know those people in the mall
in
the middle of the store?
They stress me the fuck out.
Tony and I, like, he literally gets very upset at me, because when they try to talk to you, I want to talk to them just to be nice and polite.
Yeah.
And I'll get conned into doing a lot of things. And so he is always like, no. Just say no, thank you, and walk away.
I had to learn that.
Yeah. And it's been very hard. Like, there's one day I went to the gas station, and some guy at the gas station was like selling like car cleaning products, and I bought $200 worth of product, and I came home and Tony's like, why did you buy that? I was like, I don't even know.
Oh my God. Jason
I don't
needs
know.
to talk to you about that, because he's like, why do you fall for these things? I'm like, I hate to say that, but like, I know that I used to be I just wanted people to feel good. I felt like if I said no.
And I think you take people for their word.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because when you say something, you mean it.
And that's exactly what it is. I expected myself from everyone else, which is a big no-no. But I was like, why would they lie to me?
Yeah.
Why would somebody lie about something like that? And then I realized, the older I got and the more into healing I was like, oh, people lie all the time to get what they want. Like, that's fucked up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So here's an article. It's 15 signs you're dealing with a narcissist, and a therapist wrote it.
Okay.
So 1, superiority and entitlement. Superiority is the number one sign of a narcissist. This is different from self-confidence alone. The world of the narcissist is all about good or bad, superior, inferior, right or wrong. There is a definite hierarchy, and the narcissist is always at the top, which is the only place that they feel safe. Narcissists have to be the best, the most right, and the most competent. Do everything their way, own everything, and control everyone. 2 is an exaggerated need for attention and validation. Perfectionism. They have a great need for control. They lack taking responsibility for anything that they do. They often have a lack of boundaries. And feel free to interject on any of these if you want to.
I'm absorbing.
A big one is they lack empathy. So narcissists have very little ability to empathize with others. This lack of empathy is a hallmark sign of narcissism. 8, perceiving everything as a threat. Although they're highly attuned to perceive threats, anger, and rejection from others, narcissists frequently misread subtle facial expressions and are typically biased towards interpreting facial expressions as negative. Unless you are acting out your emotions dramatically, the narcissist won't accurately perceive what you're feeling. 9, emotional reasoning. You've probably made the mistake of trying to reason and use logic with the narcissist to get them to understand the painful effect, what I was just talking about, their behavior have on behaviors have on you. You think that if they understand how much their behavior hurt you, they'll change.
Nope.
Your explanations, however, don't make sense to the narcissist, who only seems able to be aware of their own thoughts and feelings. Although narcissists may say they understand, they honestly don't. Therefore, narcissists make most of their decisions based on how they feel about something. Interesting. 10. Splitting.
I was talking to you about splitting the other day.
The narcissist personality is split into good and bad parts, and they also split everything in their relationships into good and bad. Any negative thoughts or behaviors are blamed on you or others, whereas they take credit for everything that is positive and good.
Okay, can we pause?
Yep.
I want to talk about the splitting for a second because this is something new to me and it made so much sense. I am someone's worst enemy right now because they are the narcissist and I am like the person in the situation that is like, what you're doing is wrong, blah, blah, blah. So because of that, I am like the vilified person. I am the public enemy number one.
Which all you're trying to do is hold boundaries, by the way.
Right. Like all I'm trying to do is like hold these boundaries and hold someone accountable and they did a lot of damage to a lot of people. So the splitting, I read about this because for 15 years, I was in this person's life and I'm going to say this, I was their supply for 15 years. Mm-hmm. I was the person who gave them the ego stroke when no one else did because everyone else was just like, that's just how she is. Like, we just ignore it. I never ignored it. I was always on her side. I gave her this. When I took that part of me away from her because I realized it was detrimental to my mental health, which is part of my healing journey, all hell broke loose. However, the splitting, this is what's crazy to me because now I am being vilified. I am being written out to be the worst person on earth.
Oh, that person is brutal.
And for 15 years, I was someone you really cared about.
Yeah.
And you took up for me for 15 years. And the second I set a boundary, I became the enemy. So that splitting, this is where it's hard for me because I can look at someone and say they're a good person, but they've done bad things, or they're a bad person, but they've done good things. And that splitting, once they see you as bad, they no longer see the good. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I had this other thought with this. I'm like, because of that, because they have a very hard time, everything to them is black and white. You're either good or you're bad. And once you're bad, you can never go back to that good side, right?
Right.
Because of that, they have a very hard time seeing that within themselves. So if you're saying to them, you're doing this thing and it's hurting me, they can't imagine themselves as good people because you're telling them they're doing something bad.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Wow. Or like if I did something to hurt your feelings, I would hope you tell me and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
But if you do that to a narcissist, if you say you're doing this and it's hurting me, oh, how dare you? That shouldn't hurt you. It was just a joke. I was just joking and you're too sensitive. And because they hear that as an attack on their character, on their ego, they can't separate themselves from the good and the bad. It's that splitting. It's like you're either evil or you're good. But there's nothing in between.
But the thing is the reason why you were good is because you agreed with everything that person said.
So agreeable.
And if that person had an issue with somebody else, you were on their side, not the other person's side. So you constantly were stroking their ego. And then when that person did something hurtful to you, and it should just have been, hey, that really hurt my feelings. And, somebody in a situation should be like, oh, I'm sorry I did that. It was like, no, you're now like disagreeing with me or going against me.
Yeah.
And so now you're bad.
Yeah, that's exactly. That splitting is such a weird, I never read about the splitting until a few weeks ago. And I was like, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Because they can't see gray area at all.
And what's interesting is, with my older sister, like if I ever went against her, like if I ever said, hey, like you taunting me because I had bulimia, that really hurt my feelings, and now I'm bad. Talk about a mindfuck.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
One of the things I woke up to a couple of years ago after my first mushroom experiences was noticing patterns and behaviors that I was almost conditioned to accept before. And so, my husband would have these things where he would drink and do these bad things. And then the next day when I would tell him, he would get so angry about me that I was even bringing it up. And I'm like, hold on. I'm just telling you that what you said hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
And you're mad at me because I'm telling you how I feel? Like a normal person would say, oh my God, I'm so sorry I hurt your feelings. I won't say that again.
Right.
But what's interesting about this, when I was going down the narcissist rabbit hole, I found an article that said like all alcoholics and all addicts mirror narcissists because they lack self-awareness, they lack accountability, they, all of the things that a narcissist has and all those traits, they also have.
Well, are you ready for my next one?
Oh God, yeah.
11, fear of rejection and ridicule.
Oh.
The narcissist's entire life is motivated and energized by fear. You wouldn't initially pick this out as a sign of a narcissist, though, because most narcissist fears are deeply buried and repressed. They're constantly afraid of being ridiculed, rejected, or even just being wrong.
Yeah.
They may have fears about being emotionally or physically attacked, about being seen as bad or inadequate, or about being abandoned. This makes it very difficult and sometimes impossible for the narcissist to truly trust anyone else. In fact, the closer your relationship becomes, the less that they're going to trust you. Narcissists fear any true intimacy or vulnerability because they're afraid you'll see their imperfections and judge or reject them. No amount of reassurance seems to make a difference because narcissists deeply hate and reject their own shameful imperfections.
Yeah.
It's almost like they avoid truly getting in touch with themselves.
Oh, yeah.
So 12, anxiety. Anxiety is an ongoing vague feeling that something bad is happening or about to happen. Some narcissists show their anxiety by talking constantly about the doom that is about to happen, while some hide and repress their anxiety. But most narcissists project their anxiety onto their closest loved ones, accusing them of being negative, unsupportive, mentally ill, not putting them first, not responding to their needs, or being selfish.
Shut up.
All of this is designed to transfer anxiety to the loved one in an attempt to make sure that they don't feel it themselves.
Okay, that's interesting.
As you feel worse and worse, the narcissist feels better and better. In fact, they feel stronger and more superior as you feel your anxiety and depression grow, which is an interesting thing because I have always said that I felt like my older sibling, if I succeeded or if I did well at stuff, it almost made her more upset. And I always felt like she wanted me to just fail like just suck or not do well in life or not be happy because it made her feel better.
Yeah.
And I hated feeling that way and I hated saying that. And oftentimes I got, a lot of times people would brush it off of, this is not her name, but, Rachel's just being Rachel, or you know how Rachel is.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but when you're the victim of it, like it's a really impossible thing to like deal with.
Yeah.
To have no support and to not even know how to handle it. And so oftentimes with my mom, she'd be like, what do you want me to do? I'm like, I'm 15. I don't know. But I would say, don't even bother, because if I did say something and I did try to get help,
that would be worse.
Oh, it would. The abuse would get worse.
See, and that's the interesting. What did you just say? What was the number 12?
Anxiety. They push it on other people instead of kind of taking it on themselves. They want other people to feel like shit, and they repress those type of feelings.
There was something else you said.
They transfer anxiety to the loved ones in an attempt to not feel it themselves. As you feel worse. Worse.
Yep. Okay. The person I was dealing with was very good at diagnosing everyone else.
And there's that lack of accountability.
The lack of awareness, the lack of any type of want or need to feel better, but like they would point the fingers at every single person and their issues, and they had no problem telling you to your face you're a blah, 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 blah. And I think you have blah, 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 blah. And was almost like, she crossed a lot of boundaries.
No shit.
Because she would go to people closest to those people and say, just so you know, I think so-and-so has this issue and he needs help and da-da-da-da. They made sure everyone around them knew that this person had a problem. But the problem wasn't them. It was within the person pointing blame.
Right.
So here's what's crazy to me is like, for years and years and years, they have always been very good at saying, you're this, you're that, you're this, you need help, you need therapy, you need to go here, you need to be medicated. If anyone ever points anything out about that person, you are immediately getting attacked.
Oh, yeah. That's why it's
how dare you
Right.
say that about me?
Right. And what's interesting is they feed off of drama and chaos.
They do.
They really feed off of it. But if you try to turn it back and say, well, you did this and it really hurt my feelings, or, that wasn't very nice to say, or that wasn't very, a very nice thing to do, they can't handle it.
Yeah.
And your life is going to get a lot worse.
Yeah.
So it's like, do you just sit and take it?
So one of the things my therapist said to do, this is like a technique. I was stressing out a lot. I was seeing my therapist a lot because I knew that I was going to have to face this person eventually. And she worked with me on some techniques because you're exactly right. They feed off of reactions and chaos and drama. And when you take that away, it's almost like you're not giving them anything to feed off of. You're not feeding their ego. You're not giving them anything to react to. And that it almost pisses them off more because they feed off your reaction, right?
Right.
So she talked to me about a technique called gray rocking.
Okay, what's that?
There was no way I was going to be able to avoid this person. She's basically in my life indefinitely, and I couldn't avoid a conversation. So she said, gray rocking is where you just sit there, nod your head. You don't react to any of the things because they're going to try to get a reaction out of you. They're going to say things to you to try to get you to stand up for yourself or to yell or to scream. And they're going to try to, it's crazy because they're trying to get this reaction out of you. And then as soon as you react, they're going to be like, see, you're the problem, which that's a whole nother thing.
Right. And I would get very triggered.
Yeah. That is called reactive abuse. We can go into that another time because it's very confusing because it would get in my head a little bit. I'd be like, but I did yell and I did scream, so I am abusive, but I'm like, no, I was reacting because they were poking the bear, Yeah. They poked the bear.
Yeah.
So if you know this going in and you know that you have to deal with someone like this, the best thing you can do is basically fucking play dead.
I wish I would have known this 15 years ago.
Oh, I know, right? I just learned this a couple of years ago, and I've only had to use it the one time.
And I'm sure that takes practice because it's my God,
it was
you
so
want to
hard.
stick up for yourself. And also, who wants to get berated?
Yeah. And that is what it turned into. It was like a beat down, and I just had to sit there and take it. And what's interesting is I finally, after about an hour of this, I started reacting and because I couldn't do it anymore. And then I was immediately the problem.
Oh, of course.
And then it was like this recognition, they say, some people will say narcissists are very unpredictable, but I think that is false. I think that they're extremely predictable. If you can take a step back, you can see patterns in behavior, and you can predict exactly how they're going to react and the tools they're going to use to try to get a reaction out of you.
So I would try to do that unknowingly. I would try to just sit there.
The gray rocking?
Yeah, and take it. But then when it's when you're a teenager, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so I would try to not do anything or try to ignore it. But it's so hard because let's say I would walk to my bedroom. She'd follow me. There was one time I remember I grew up in the country. I literally went outside and walked on the gravel road just to try to get away. And she followed me and continuously just verbally attacked me and never gave me my space, I would try to lock the door. She'd break the door open. I mean, there was no
escape for you.
Yeah. And I had nobody. And so too, I, if anybody has gone through this, you should send us a DM if you have any questions or, you relate to this. But I just remember like having no hope, like no one's going to help. Even still to this day, no one acknowledges the toxic behavior for what it is. So that's something that I've, always very much so struggled, but I give myself a lot of grace now that I dealt with all of that stuff and, have tried to overcome it and heal. But that's, dealing with a narcissist is very, very painful.
I've tried to say this to my husband because when I was going through all of this, all the stuff that was coming up when I was researching and, following these Instagram pages with narcissistic abuse recovery therapists. And I'm like, it's very specialized because it's unlike any other type of abuse.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying there are all kinds of different types of abuse, but they literally, you have to find a specialist. That's how fucked up it is.
Yeah.
You're not alone. That it is such a mind fuck that they have these groups specifically targeted to help people in narcissistic abuse recovery.
Right.
So it is very different than just, a normal breakup or a normal toxic parent situation. It is a complete mind fuck.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Even, my family knew of her toxic behavior. My friends knew. No one knew how to deal with it. And I've even had, people reach out to me and they've said, I'm sorry I didn't do anything. I'm sorry I didn't say anything because they experienced it, whether, she was like that to them.
Right.
Or, she would do it and she would be awful to me in front of people, but they didn't how do you stick up to that? I didn't know how is some random person who was in my class supposed to know what to do either?
Well, and this is where I have a hard time. They say that they're not self-aware, so they don't realize they're doing it. Have you ever, does a narcissist know they're a narcissist? Are they doing these things on purpose? Do they know what they're doing? And I have a hard time saying they don't, because I think it's very calculated and manipulative because they are very good at treating other people different.
Yeah.
So it's almost like when you go to someone and you say these things, they know this person is extreme and full of themselves and grandiose.
But she can also be very, very charming.
And they don't know
very likable.
What it looks like behind closed doors. And that's where I'll just give an example. So my mom, we grew up very religious. So we were in church all the time. And she was very giving. She would help everybody. And so in the church setting, she looked like this amazing woman. But what's interesting is throughout my life, as much as we moved, we would be kicked out of churches because they can't wear their mask forever.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. And eventually when the mask comes off, people see them for who they are. So what's interesting about it, you're saying this, and that's kind of how my family dynamic was. My mom there's 6 siblings total. So I have aunts and uncles, and I would say things and they're like, that's just how your mom is. And Dora Beth. And that's just
I hate
how
that.
she is.
It drives me crazy.
But then when the Dr. Phil episode came out, they saw her reaction or her interaction with me.
And how she treated you.
And how she treated me on a different level. Mm-hmm. Because like I said, she's very good at playing victim and Leah's not talking to me and I don't know what I did wrong. And they're like, oh my gosh, why? So when they saw that dynamic on national television, I got I had no idea from my aunts and uncles who grew up with this person.
Right.
And they started telling me stories of when they were kids and things she did to them when they were children. And I'm like, oh, she's always been this way. But you don't know what goes on behind closed doors with a narcissist. And that's kind of the scary part because they have a supply and the supply is usually the one who gets the brunt of it.
Mm-hmm.
So was it you that I was telling this morning, Dr. Romani? She's like an expert she's an expert on narcissists, just wrote several books. She was saying sometimes it's often, it's kind of fun to be the friend of a narcissist.
Yeah.
Did I tell you, was that us?
Yeah, because
Okay.
you're getting the, yeah, my sister was super, like, she was very popular and like, was like the cool, athletic, like, whatever. And
they're very charming.
Yeah. Oh, very, very charming. Her friends loved her.
Yeah.
And even still to this day, like, I've gotten the acknowledgement from some of my friends, but even my family members, I don't get the acknowledgement because also they know her and they're scared to go against her wrath.
Oh yeah.
Because that wrath
they've
is brutal.
Seen it happen.
Yeah. So I just had to take it.
That sucks.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thank you. But yeah, it is living with one. Good God. So this is interesting. 13. They have deeply repressed shame.
Oh my God, I forgot there was more.
Yeah, sorry. There's 2. There's 15 and I'm on 13.
Oh shit.
So narcissists don't feel much guilt because they are always right and they don't believe their behaviors really affect anyone else.
Okay.
But they harbor a lot of shame. Shame is the belief that there is something deeply and permanently wrong or bad about who you are. Buried in a deeply repressed part of the narcissist are all their insecurities, fears, and rejected traits that they are constantly on guard to hide from everyone, including themselves.
Huh.
And then 14, it's an inability to be truly vulnerable. Because of their inability to understand feelings, their lack of empathy, and constant need for self-protection, narcissists can't truly love or connect emotionally with other people. They cannot look at the world from anyone else's perspective. This makes them emotionally needy. When one relationship is no longer satisfying, they often overlap relationships or start a new one as soon as possible. And then the last one, 15, an inability to communicate or work as part of a team. Thoughtful, cooperative behaviors require real understanding of each other's feelings. How will the other person feel? Will this action make both of us happy? How will this affect our relationship? These are questions that narcissists don't have the capacity or the motivation to even think about. Don't expect a narcissist to understand your feelings. Give up anything they want for your benefit. It is completely useless.
Interesting. I'm sorry, I didn't know you had 2 more. I feel like we took that in hand.
That's okay.
But we talked about that in the last episode too, how like they lack those mirror neurons. Like they really, really are on the low end of the empathy spectrum.
Yeah, like literally on episodes when you've cried, I start crying too.
Yeah.
So, but that's why we feed them very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Like if they see us crying, if they're upset, like they're like, oh, they get it. Yeah. Oh my God, it's so interesting.
Yeah.
So we might have to cut this episode short and do a continuation.
Yeah, this is definitely a 2-parter because we got a lot more to cover.
This is a 2-parter. So what did we go over today? Like the 15 signs of a narcissist? Yep.
So the 15 signs of a narcissist and how empaths and narcissists are often attracted to each other.
Okay. It's interesting. I think once you become aware of these things, it's really, really, you can start to pay attention to the people in your life if you feel like somebody is somewhat of an energy sucker or, you question yourself around them a lot.
I think that's a big reason. Yeah. Trust that gut feeling, I always say.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So, but yeah, if you have, any questions or if you relate to this topic, shoot us a DM.
You know what I would really love to do?
Huh.
Because it's been really hard finding someone who specializes in this, is find someone who has specifically worked with narcissistic personality disorder.
Yeah. Yes.
So they can help us maybe give some advice or, I think that the hard thing is like we see a narcissist and we know that they're in pain and we know that they're hurting and we just want to help them. But that's not their goal. Their goal is to not help themselves. But
can we put them on like a stranded island with like a ton of like professional experts to deal with that. I'm just kidding. Can we just like, all right, you're a narcissist, go ahead and...
Well, and that's the interesting thing. They're like, you need therapy. You need to go to therapy. And I feel like the crazy thing, there's such a negative connotation around the word therapy, or if you're going to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but it's usually the people who are having to deal with these people who have to go, you know, like...
But we're the cycle breakers. They're not.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
So.
You're right. And we can get into this in the next episode.
Yeah.
What can give us a preview?
So our next episode is where we're going to go over types of narcissists.
Okay, yeah, this is important.
Yeah. And 9 ways that you can destroy a narcissist. Not like physically destroy you guys.
No, just, we don't.
Just have stronger boundaries. That's all. That was like a destroy them.
Well, that does destroy them, though.
It does. It really does. But I'm still all about like them just going on an island and.
I think, was it you that I said the first time I ever set like a boundary and was clear on it? It was almost like watching somebody melt.
Yeah, it's like a Disney villain.
Yeah, I was
getting
like,
killed off.
Yeah. That's all I did was this, and you just like shriveled up and died.
Yeah, but we're way more badass than a Disney princess.
Who are you? What am I?
I'm fucking Moana, bitch.
I'm Captain Marvel. I'm just kidding.
What?
That's not a
You
Disney
could be.
princess.
You could be.
No, I don't know. If I was a princess, who would I be?
Someone who's like a little bit more modernized and not such a damsel in distress. That's why I chose Moana. Plus, I'm Pacific Islander.
Anna.
What?
Anna.
Yes, absolutely.
She's not a damsel in distress.
Absolutely not.
She doesn't need Kristoff.
Mm-mm. Yeah, no. Yeah, you're Anna. I'm Moana.
Kristoff is just a nice addition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He just compliments her.
Exactly.
Just she didn't
She did not need a knight in shining armor to come along. Okay, I love that. All right, Moana. We're gonna sign off, and hope you guys tune in next week to listen to the rest of what we have to say. If you're still following, so we have a thing in our link.
Yes, plug it, babe.
Okay,
plug it.
So we do this for fun, believe it or not. We're not getting paid to do this. Weird, right?
But we should be.
We will be. And we wish we could do this more often, but we can't because it's not our jobs. We have actual jobs outside of this. But we have a link in our bio, and it's at the very top of our photo, and it looks like a little heart. And if you click it, you can buy us a coffee.
We'll post it on our stories.
We can totally post it on our stories. So, a little coffee here and there will...
Not a lot, because you know how we feel about caffeine.
I know. We can't have too much caffeine, but, a little support goes a long way, and it feels like we're doing something for something and not something for nothing. Not that sounded terrible.
No, it doesn't.
I know we're not doing something for nothing because I feel really good about what we're doing.
Yes. But it'd be nice to get paid one day.
Right, because I've got a little, what is this? A venti paradise drink from Starbucks over here next to me, which, by the way, if you haven't had that, try it. It's like, tastes like a pina colada.
And on that note, we out.
Rate, review, subscribe, and buy us a coffee maybe or something.
Yes, please.
Yeah, or a little cheese Danish.
Yeah, or a pina colada.
Pina colada. All right, see you guys on the other side.
Bye.